Welcome everyone to another episode of Moments with Mom and Dad. I'm Gail Buse and this is my good friend Wilma Sanera. Each one of us today want to talk about a subject that is dear to our heart, and that would be that if I only had one message to share with people before I knew I was leaving, what would that message be that I would want to anchor them and prepare them for their life? And so that's our topic today, and I'm going to start reading a scripture that's found in Hebrews, the 11th chapter. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and start with verse 13. It's listing the heroes of what we would call the heroes of faith. It says, all these people died still believing what God had promised them. They did not receive what was promised, but they saw it from a distance and they welcomed it. And they agreed that they were foreigners and nomads here on the earth. Obviously, people who say such things are looking forward to a country they will call their own. But they were looking for a better place, a heavenly homeland. That is why God is not ashamed to be called their Father, for He has prepared a city for them. And so for me, if I had one last opportunity to share with people something that I wanted to impart, I would share on what I call the subject of living in light of eternity. When I look at this scripture, I look at people who recognize that Earth's journey is really a short segment of the big picture. It is not the big picture. The big picture is really the eternal outcome, because we're going to live forever in eternity. We're either going to live in one destination or another. It's either we're going to live in eternity in fellowship with God or in separation. And what I see here were people who weren't so anchored here in this world and this world system, but the thing that motivated them and what they kept before them was the promise of God, and they were looking at the eternal. So every decision they made, the course that they set in their life, that was the premise of it.
But how do you know what is the eternal?
Well, I think it has to do with the things that God is speaking to you. Like, there's certain things we know for sure, and that is that the Word very much talks to us about living under lordship of Jesus Christ. That means that I'm not living my life for myself. I'm living my life for Him. So I am putting my life into His hands, and I'm asking Him, Lord, what do you want to do with my life? You cannot ask a question like that and God not answer. You know, if people, I'll be honest enough to go before God and say, God, what do you want to do with my life? I'm giving you my life. Show me what you want. Oh, that's an open book for God. That's what He's longing to hear from His children, because that's a person who's saying, I'm choosing to live my life not for myself, but for your eternal purpose.
You know, one of the things that I hear a lot of people saying, and especially younger people, when I say things like that, they said, but how do I know that God is talking to me? How does God sound? How will He direct me? How will what would you say that it will be, what ways God have talked to you that you know, okay, I'm going to live for the eternal. I'm not going to live in the now because God is showing me. But what would be sure things that you can tell people what to look for?
One thing I would say for sure is that I'm going to live my life as an instrument for the gospel. So if the gospel of Jesus Christ becomes front and central in your life, then you know part of what He's called you to, every single one of us as a believer. This is like Christianity 101, is we're only here on planet Earth for one reason, and that's the purpose of the gospel. And so I'm going to live my life, whether it's at school, whether it's in a workplace, whether it's in a neighborhood. I'm living my life, and the jumping point of every activity that I do, it's the purpose of sharing Jesus and making God's kingdom known, making His kingdom known. That, I think, is the first step. I always tell people, if you walk in what you know to do, more light will come on the things you don't know. You know, it positions you. If I walk in the revelation of what I do know is God's will, and His Word shows me a lot about the purpose of why I've been born again and the purpose of God and what He wants to do in my life and through my life. If I make those my first steps, it will enlighten the next steps that I'm supposed to take. And what I believe in that, part of what He will enlighten is the things that have to do with you personally. How He wants to use you personally. Because every single one of us are designed by God and gifted by God, and all of those gifts are not about us and how they're going to serve us. All of those gifts are about how they're going to serve people. So the other thing I would always tell a young person is the desires that are in your heart. Look at the gifts that are in your life. How do they serve people? Because it's not about serving you for some great lifestyle. It's about equipment God put on the inside of you that opens doors of opportunity in the lives of people. And that's a major revelation that will help me understand God's design for my life, or God's design for their life, because those gifts and those ability aren't about income. Those gifts and those ability are about people, about people. And then I believe the more that we lay our life into God's hand, and we cry, there's a cry on the inside of us for God to use us, the more He begins to narrow it down to specific areas of function and fruitfulness in our life. And so I think once those things start to become real to you, you make decisions according to that.